There are certain plants that it seems like they just don't want to be variegated. They're like, unvariegate me, why am I a variegated plant? This is not how I'm meant to exist. And they do every single thing they can to lose their variegation and to revert back to their original color. And that can be very frustrating for we plant collectors that bought them for their variegation. However, there are certain plants that they love to be variegated. They're like, yes, I wasn't born or created this way, but I'm gonna accept it. I'm gonna own my variegated life. And that is the essence of this video, babes. We're gonna be spotlighting variegated plants that have stable variegation. And they love to be variegated. They push out even more beautiful, healthy variegated leaves. Not the ones that take it a little too far and then push out all white leaves. No. These are just plants that just give you unproblematic, consistent, beautiful variegation. Plus, they are also easy to take care of. Okay, so grab a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, grab something. Because this video is gonna be epic. Let's proceed with the first plant. Girlies, look at the material. Doesn't this just look like a beautiful flame of variegated leaves? This is the variegated Anthurium Hookeri. And just look at the size of, oh my god, this is a work of art. One thing I like about this plant is that the variegation is stable and unproblematic. And also, I live in a very hot country and I have a place underneath the shade net that still gets quite heated. But as you can see, the variegation hasn't burnt or melted away, which tends to be the issue with some of the variegated plants that I have in my climate, which is the more reason why I love this babe. And can I blow your mind? This is a bird's nest type of Anthurium, so it grows big. In fact, the only thing preventing this plant from growing colossal is the pot size. If I had enough shaded space and I didn't live in a rented shared compound, I would have put this babe in a massive pot and she would just grow huge and bigger leaves. This is also an Anthurium that is quite drought tolerant, because some of you know these Anthuriums can be quite thirsty and they will have these crispy leaves and battered looking leaves if they are left to stay thirsty for a while. But this babe is drought tolerant. Another reason why I absolutely love her. She wasn't cheap, okay? This is one of my more expensive plants, and I got her when she was really small. She was like a small bush. I'll see if I can find a picture. But honestly, she has been worth it through and through, and I 150 million times recommend. So please, if you can, wherever you see this plant, whether it's on Etsy, online, on your friggin' Walmart, please get it. Honestly speaking, this is gonna be money well spent. You're not gonna regret it. I give mine lots of bright indirect light, and also she can also take some direct morning sunlight, nothing too harsh, and you're gonna have an unproblematic plant that will just give you joy constantly. So we have to start off with this one. She's an icon and she deserves first place feature in this video. Alright, this next one, I don't see you girlies in the United States, in North America and the West feature or talk about this plant. And I'm surprised because over here in Nigeria, it's a fairly common plant. It's not cheap, but it's fairly common. Hang on. It's a variegated lady palm. Okay, I know when you hear palms, you might be thinking, oh my god, these are outdoor tropical plants. That is true for a lot of them, but this is probably the most common plant we grow indoors in this part of the world. So unlike your typical, like your golden palms, this is more indoor friendly. And in fact, this doesn't like full sun. It has to be grown in shade. In fact, I just recently installed a very bushy, massive, luscious looking one in my client's living room. And it's a plant that can grow in medium light, in full shade, definitely not full sun. Now, when it comes to the variegation of this one, I will say the more light you give it, the more variegated it's going to be. Now, this is a perfect example because if you look at the older leaves, they're not as variegated, right? And that's because for the longest time, I had this babe growing in deep shade, like in the deepest part of my shade net, because I was worried that the Nigerian sun would fry her. I just recently brought her out into light and she brought out this. beautiful, yummy, variegated leaves. So the variegation of this one is more of an aurea. It's more of like a yellow tint, not like a full white, which to me is more interesting and it blends more beautifully with the green leaves. I will say, however, that this one, you don't want to expose it to direct sunlight, because if you do, the variegation will burn. I think I have a part here. Can you see that brown thing here? It's this evil Nigerian sun. It's this evil Nigerian sun. Also, you may be worried that, oh my God, this is a palm and palms grow slowly. Well, yes, a lot of palms grow slowly, but not this one. This one is a fast grower, even as it is variegated. It grows really fast. In fact, the only reason why this has not grown really big is because I have restricted her to a small pot. Girlies, I live in a rented apartment. I'm sharing my compound with my neighbors, so I don't want to like report this into big pots and they just grow huge. In this tropical part of the world, plants can grow huge, and you know, if you live in a shared space, they can become quite imposing for like your neighbor or your landlord. But if I had my way, I would move Babe into a big pot so she would just grow into a huge bush. I've seen a couple of these that are just huge and big, and it's such a yummy and beautiful sight. So please, if you ever stumble on this and you want to splurge, because I know they are not certainly not cheap, but if you ever stumble on this and you want to splurge, please get this plant. She's worth it. Just ensure that you get one that, you know, has ample variegation, okay? But I think that has to be said with every single plant I show you. Ensure, if you're picking a variegated plant, always ensure you pick one that has ample variegation. Avoid one that is too variegated. If it is too variegated, the plant begins to struggle. So just pick one that has a good and decent amount of variegated leaves, while also having a decent amount of non-variegated leaves. That's just the perfect balance. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed to this video, then what's your problem? Hit that subscribe button right now. Thank you. This next one, I don't know whether to carry her or not. She's quite colossal. She's monstrous. She's huge. I don't know whether to carry her or just insert B-rolls, but you know, let me carry her. You guys are worth the stress. If you're an OG of this page, you know I talk about this plant a lot. I think this is probably my most talked about plant. This is a Dieffenbachia Big Ben variegata. Look at the material. This is honestly not only one of my most precious plants, but also the easiest plant. And in my experience, this does a lot better indoors than outdoors. In fact, this babe doesn't like to be outdoors. The few times I've attempted to grow her outdoors, even in shade, she always wilts and looks miserable. She loves to be indoors. So I've had her now for years, since she was a wretched looking, unrecognizable stump. I've had her now for like, maybe this has been on the 4th year, and I've been growing this babe indoors entirely. She doesn't even need a heck ton of light. And she's just, look, she's about to bring out a new leaf. Now, I know these guys are quite expensive. You know, they can be quite expensive here, and they're generally expensive plants. But I always tell people when I speak about this plant, worth it. There's no one that I know that's ever bought this plant and has ever complained that they regret buying the plant. It's very easy. At one point, I had her growing entirely in cocoa coir. She doesn't even need fancy soil. Just water her when she's dry, keep her in a bright spot, and you're good to go. The only thing I don't like about her is that she's quite stretchy and she's quite phototrophic, which can sometimes ruin her growth profile. So to avoid that, just have her placed, you know, in a bright spot or next to a window that receives some mild direct sunlight, nothing too harsh, and you're just pretty much good to go. I will say it is very, very important that you get yourself one that has good variegation from the get-go. You know, if it's one that is mostly green and, you know, with little variegation, you know, you could try your luck, but chances are it's not gonna end up being as glorious as this. So please, 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 I know she's gonna cost you an arm and a leg and your grandmother's inheritance, but trust me, she's worth it. She's worth it. I strongly recommend. Go for it, babes. You deserve it. Spend that money. You work so hard. Spend your money. My God. This next one, babes, Honestly, if there's a variegated plant out of all these lots I've shown you that I have made the most money from, it will be this. Why? Because this is a rapid growing plant. This plant is a weed. In fact, I have intentionally kept her contained in this small pot. I can feel like she's bursting through the seams of the pot because she needs a bigger pot. But I've kept her contained in this small pot because the problem I have with this plant is that she just grows and she takes over. She grows and she takes over, and I will oftentimes have to keep propagating just to keep her looking, to prevent her from looking wild. But that's a good thing. Especially if you're the type of person that wants to make your money back or just wants to make like some spare change from selling plants. This plant has made me quite a lot of money. I got her when she was just a small cutting, and through the years she has gotten big. I've propagated, I have sold, I've did this. Right now I think she's in her retirement era. Right now I've just let her be in this small pot and she's in her retirement era. I will say with this one though, you do it in very, very important that you get one that has a lot of variegation like this, because what has happened with this guy is that the green, the non-variegated part, grows very rapidly and will quickly overtake and stifle the variegated leaves. So you want one that is quite variegated like this, so that the green leaves don't quickly take over it. So I don't know how expensive it is for you guys over here, but over here I would say, just given how rapidly they grow here and they're easy to propagate, they're not that expensive. They're not like, but the most expensive. This is also one that can take direct sunlight, which is a bonus if you live in a hot climate like I do. It can take direct sunlight. The only disadvantage is that the variegation will fade. Can you see? This is a case where the variegation has faded to like this off-white color, as opposed to like the creamy yellowish variegation. So definitely we recommend, maybe one of these days I will report this into a bigger pot so you guys can actually see how when she's just a full variegated bush. But yeah, I 100% recommend this. Like, get these leaves, please do. Okay, now if you do not like aglaonemas, I'm gonna need you to grow up, because they are easy, they are drought tolerant, they are beautiful. What's not to love? And some of them have really interesting variegation, like this one I'm going to show you. Look at this. Oh, how can you not love aglaonema? Some of you may remember I featured this in my aglaonema tour video. It was a small baby, but now look at her. Looks like a beautiful painting. I know we all love white variegation, which is why I picked this particular aglaonema, because I know you all are gonna love it. It does have like white variegation with all those reddish pinkish sparkles all over it. It is absolutely beautiful. I keep forgetting the name of this aglaonema. I'm gonna see if I can Google lens it and then insert the name for you guys, but it's like every single aglaonema is worth it. Like, there is no aglaonema that is difficult. It's also very drought tolerant, which is great if you're somebody who's busy or forgetful or whatever, or you're a mom of like 15 children. This will just fit perfectly into your routine / your collection. So I strongly recommend get this aglaonema. I will say with the more variegated and the more colorful aglaonemas, you want to give them a bit more light. They're not low light, they are not. They will lose their variegation, or they will start to stretch and become really leggy. Okay, so give this one brighter light, avoid direct sunlight. Aglaonemas can actually take some direct sunlight, because I do grow them outdoors. They can take some direct sunlight, morning direct sunlight, but anything after that, you're not a fan of. So I 100% recommend this. So let's move on to something a bit more affordable for the girlies that are on a budget, or for the girlies that just don't want to spend so much. I understand you, I completely relate. So this one is a bit more affordable, a bit more accessible, but also very beautiful. Some will even argue probably the most beautiful plant on this list. Let me show you. It's a Dracaena Stardust. The only thing I do not like about this plant is that she's not photogenic or videogenic. Like each time I pick her up to show you guys, I just feel a bit underwhelmed. She looks a lot, I don't think the camera does justice to her. She looks so much more beautiful in person. Those leaves, look at, oh my goodness, a beautiful work of art. You can never go wrong with Dracaenas. They make excellent indoor plants, and they're very low light tolerant and very drought tolerant as well. Also, this one can take full sun, which is one thing I love about it. Any variegated plant that can take full sun in my part of the world, I'm like, yes, we're best. So it takes full sun, full shade. You know, as long as the light you're giving it is bright, the variegation will be popping. I will say the downside is that this one does grow quite slowly though. So I would advise, if you're gonna get this, because I think this is something you can easily access in your big box stores. Certainly now that spring is in the corner, but if you're gonna get this, I will advise get one that is full. Okay, don't get a small one. Get one that is full. I mean, you can get a small one if you have the patience, but the fuller you find this, the better it would be. And there are also other variants of this. There's one, I think that one is called the Milky Way. That one is just so beautiful. Like, it's so beautiful. That one's a bit more scarce though, and tends to grow more slowly, slow of head. But you know, this one is just as beautiful, more readily available, and more affordable. So yeah, definitely go for it. Now, one thing about these variegated plants or rare plants in general is that if you're really patient enough, the price will come down and you will be able to afford these plants. And I think I have a plant that is a perfect example of that. I'm sure some of you probably know what plant I'm talking about. A Thai Constellation. A Thai Constellation. Do you remember like 2-3 years ago when this plant was like the it plant? This plant at one point was like the ultimate show-off / status symbol because it wasn't easy to find, it was expensive, and it hadn't been tissue cultured there. Right now the price has drastically dropped. You can find it in big, I see some of you in your big box stores finding it for $20, $30, $70. I'm like, girl, what is going on? They are still quite expensive in Nigeria, but their prices actually started to come down. Which, if you're someone who sells plants like me, you're like, oh, you're gonna run into a loss. But if it's for the customers, then it's a good thing. So yes, a Monstera Thai Constellation. Now this one, the variegation is stable and is dependent on the parent plant. It's not affected by light, it's not affected by all the other stuff. As long as you have a parent plant with healthy variegation, then you're gonna be blessed with healthy variegation for the rest of your life with this plant. However, I will say, you see, the variegation tends to burn. You know, at least in my case, because I'm growing it, although I'm growing this outdoors in a shade net, the heat, this country is too hot. The heat does still get to it, and I also think with some of these variegated plants, including this madam, if they're left to stay dry for too long, they start to have this. So although your monsteras are drought tolerant, if this one is left to stay dry for too long, the variegated parts will begin to crisp. Okay, that's one thing you need to bear in mind. But the variegation is stable, it's beautiful. This used to be huge. This was a huge plant. Some of you may remember, but I took cutting, I propagated, and I sold. I'm so glad I did, because if I had not, I would have been at a loss because the price has come down. But I took cuttings, I sold, I made my money back and some more. Yeah. So now I'm just allowing her just grow and do her thing. She's a large form monstera. The large form monsteras can be quite slow growing at first, but when they pick up, they grow and become amazing. So Monstera Thai Constellation, ladies and gentlemen, needless to say, watch it. Please get it. Go to your big box stores, go to your, wherever they sell plants close to you. I'm sure they're probably gonna have it. Buy it. Even if it's the last $50 you have in your account, you won't regret it. Honestly, you won't. And there's this one. Oh please, there's no way I will make this video without including this. This is a Syngonium Albo. Oh my god, this is, honestly, I feel like if you're a beginner, you're somebody who's just getting into variegated plants, get this. It is so fast growing, it is so easy to propagate, and every single leaf is different. Every single leaf is like a work of art. Also, one thing I love about this Syngonium, and in fact a lot of Syngoniums, a lot of you all don't know this, but Syngoniums take full sun. We use them here in landscaping, and they grow. Some of you have seen some of my plant shopping videos. These guys are growing in full intense even Nigerian sun, and they're fine. So this one grows, it's full sun, full harsh afternoon sun, and the variegation doesn't burn. I don't know what type of magic that is. I don't know what type of witchcraft that is, but it grows in full sun and its variegation doesn't burn. No, and I just absolutely love it. So it grows really fast, very easy to propagate. Look at this. Just cut it. You know, look, you don't even have to stick it in water, babes. Nobody got time for that. Just stick it directly in your potting mix and it will root. That's how fast it is. Now, when it comes to availability, these guys, there was a time they were like really popular here and you could easily find them. But I feel like they've in a way fallen out of fashion. And that's just the thing with plants. I think it's like that all over the world. That sometimes everybody's like, oh, I want this plant, I want this plant. And there are times where people don't really care for it. So I feel like right now she's falling out of like style, but to me, she's still gonna be beautiful. I was contemplating whether to show you guys this plant or not because I'm not a fan of its growth profile, guys. I mean, it's a very easy plant, but just the way it grows. Okay, she's not looking bad. She's looking quite photogenic. This is a Philodendron Paraiso Verde. Now, I will say the variegation of this plant is very temperature dependent. This is why I saved her for the last, because the variegation may not work based off of the average temperature in your home and in your climate. So you need an average temperature that is above 25 degrees Celsius in order to have this, you know, yummy looking variegated leaves. If the temperature is typically below that, it's going to be green. I've seen people with this plant and it's just green no matter what they do. The only downside of this plant is that it doesn't grow in a beautiful way, in my opinion, and it's really difficult to style. I've tried to grow this indoors and it just makes my indoor space look terrifying. So and also I can't seem to find a place outdoors where it looks beautiful. I just keep changing the position. So that's just the only thing. And also because of the way it grows, it needs a lot of shaded space, which is one of the issues I'm having. You know, I live in hellfire, aka Nigeria. It's so hot here and sunny, and I have very limited shaded space. So I've actually struggled to find ample shaded space for this babe. She grows so fast. She grows like a weed, and she grows so aggressively that sometimes it can be hard to keep her contained. She has outgrown these pots already. It can be hard to keep her contained in a particular pot. So for those reasons, she may not necessarily be practical for a lot of people and a lot of spaces. But if you have the space and if you have the temperature and if you have a big pot, then oh my God, please get this plant. She's very easy, very easy, and grows like an aggressive weed. Okay, so oh my God, darlings, we've come to the end of this video. I have a lot of cleaning up to do. Like, my plant room is a mess. There's soil everywhere. Oh my God, but please, the more reason why you need to subscribe to this video if you've not. But I do hope you genuinely enjoyed it, and I'm curious to know your thoughts in the comment section. As usual, I'm gonna be in the comments kicking with you guys. So see you guys in the comments. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, and thanks for watching.